Welcome to Health 2660. Here we don't just talk about health, we tell the stories that heal. Now please listen to the story. At 68, when most people resign themselves to the quiet decline of aging, Eleanor chose a different path, a path of curiosity, a path guided by knowledge, a path to reclaim control over her health. For years, Eleanor had grown used to waking up slightly tired, restless sleep, persistent joint aches from osteoporosis, frequent colds that came and went like clockwork. And lately, a new unwelcome visitor, low-grade anxiety and mild depression arriving without clear cause. During a routine checkup, her doctor reviewed her labs. Your vitamin D levels are within the normal range. No need for additional supplements. The number 28 nanograms per milliliter. Technically normal by conventional standards. But deep down, Eleanor wasn't convinced. Her body was quietly whispering that something still wasn't right. One Sunday afternoon, Eleanor met her old friend Linda, a retired healthcare researcher. As they sipped coffee, Eleanor voiced her concerns. Linda leaned in and said, "Eleanor, most people, including many doctors, don't realize this vitamin D doesn't just protect your bones." Eleanor's curiosity piqued. "There are two systems involved," Linda continued. "First, the classic endocrine system managing calcium and bone health. Second, the local cellular system, called the intracrine and paracrine system, where vitamin D regulates over 2,000 genes. Genes tied to immune balance, inflammation, autoimmune diseases, cancer defense, cardiovascular health, mood regulation, even fertility." Eleanor was stunned. Her whole life, vitamin D had been reduced to nothing more than the bone vitamin. That evening, Eleanor couldn't sleep. She dove headfirst into the research. What she discovered astonished her. Many studies linked higher vitamin D levels to lower risk of infections, autoimmune disorders, preeclampsia, cancers, and depression. The standard blood test only measures 25-hydroxy vitamin D, the storage form. But inside the cells, the active form 1,25-dihydroxy vitamin D drives gene regulation. The recommended daily doses, often 600 to 800 IU, were designed to prevent rickets, not optimize broader systemic health. Leading vitamin D researchers, such as Professor Bruce Hollis and others, had been safely taking 5,000 tolerance to 10,000 tolerance IU daily for years. Large studies that reported no benefit, often used insufficient doses, failed to stratify participants based on baseline levels and excluded important confounders. The studies weren't showing vitamin D was ineffective. They were simply poorly designed. After months of careful research and consulting with an integrative endocrinologist, Eleanor created her plan. She raised her daily vitamin D intake from $1,000 IU to $6,000 IU under supervision. She added 400 milliliters of magnesium, daily critical for vitamin D activation inside cells. Scheduled regular lab monitoring for 25 OHD levels, calcium kidney function, and inflammatory markers. Added 15 to 20 minutes of morning sunlight exposure whenever possible. Adopted a nutrient-rich diet, salmon, leafy greens, eggs, avocados, olive oil, pasture-raised meats. Included daily light exercise and walking to support immune, metabolic, and cardiovascular health. 6 months later, the transformation was unmistakable. Deeper restorative sleep returned. Joint pain diminished significantly. Colds and seasonal flus nearly vanished. Her anxiety faded. Mood stabilized. She woke up refreshed, energized. At her follow-up appointment, her vitamin D stabilized at 75 nanograms per milliliter, within what many leading experts consider optimal. Inflammatory markers like CRP dropped. Blood pressure normalized. Even cholesterol levels slightly improved. Looking back, Eleanor smiled and said, "Sometimes we cannot afford to wait for medical guidelines to catch up. We must stay curious, trust evidence, listen to our bodies, and take responsibility for our health." Vitamin D is not just for bones, it is a hormone influencing over 2,000 genes. Standard blood tests measure storage, not cellular activity. Optimal dosing may vary with knowledgeable healthcare providers. Much of modern research is still catching up to decades of emerging evidence. You have the power to take charge. The sooner, the better. Eleanor's journey began not with a dramatic diagnosis, but with a subtle, persistent unease. It was the nagging feeling that despite what conventional medicine dictated, something was amiss within her own body. This wasn't a sudden life-altering event. It was a slow burn, a creeping sense that her vitality was gradually being eroded. The official normal range for vitamin D, according to her doctor's lab, was 28 nanograms per milliliter. This met the minimum threshold, a value often cited as preventing severe bone deficiencies, like rickets or osteomalacia. But Eleanor, even before her research deep dive, felt it wasn't enough. Her intuition was fueled by years of mindful living. She was never one to blindly accept everything she was told, especially regarding her health. Even in her younger days, raising her children, she questioned conventional wisdom, seeking out alternative viewpoints on nutrition and wellness. This intrinsic curiosity was a defining characteristic, a quality that had served her well throughout her life. It wasn't arrogance or distrust of doctors. Rather, it was a commitment to actively participate in her own healthcare decisions, to understand the underlying mechanisms at play, and to make informed choices based on a comprehensive understanding of the available evidence. She remembered her grandmother, a woman of immense resilience and practical wisdom, often saying, "Doctors offer opinions, but your body tells the truth." This philosophy was deeply ingrained in Eleanor. Her initial symptoms, while seemingly minor, were accumulating and beginning to impact her quality of life. The fatigue wasn't debilitating, but it was a constant drag, a shadow that followed her throughout the day. She found herself needing more naps, and even after a full night's sleep, she rarely woke up feeling fully rested. The joint aches, particularly in her knees and hips, were a daily reminder of her aging body. They weren't excruciating, but they limited her mobility, making her hesitate before engaging in activities she once enjoyed, like gardening or long walks in the park. The frequent colds were particularly frustrating. It seemed like every few months she would be hit with a runny nose, a sore throat, and a general feeling of malaise that would last for a week or two. While each episode was relatively mild, the cumulative effect was a constant disruption to her routine and a constant reminder of her vulnerability. The anxiety and mild depression were perhaps the most unsettling symptoms. Eleanor had always been a relatively upbeat and optimistic person. She had faced challenges in her life, as everyone does, but she had always managed to maintain a positive outlook. The sudden onset of anxiety, without any clear trigger, was disconcerting. She found herself worrying about things that she wouldn't have given a second thought to in the past. She would lie awake at night, replaying conversations in her mind, imagining worst-case scenarios, and feeling a general sense of unease. The mild depression was equally unwelcome. She found herself losing interest in activities she used to enjoy, feeling a sense of apathy and detachment from the world around her. She chalked it up initially to the challenges of aging in a changing world, but Linda's comment was the seed that grew into something more. Linda's words that Sunday afternoon were a catalyst, Linda wasn't just a friend. She was a trusted source of information, a voice of reason grounded in scientific rigor. Her years as a healthcare researcher had instilled in her a deep appreciation for evidence-based medicine and a healthy skepticism of unsubstantiated claims. When Linda spoke, Eleanor listened. The distinction Linda made between the classic endocrine system and the local cellular system was revolutionary in Eleanor's mind. She had always understood vitamin D as primarily a bone-strengthening nutrient, crucial for calcium absorption and the prevention of osteoporosis. The idea that it played a far more pervasive role in regulating cellular function, influencing thousands of genes throughout the body, was a complete paradigm shift. That night, fueled by a potent cocktail of curiosity and concern, Eleanor embarked on a deep dive into the scientific literature. She started with Google Scholar, a search engine dedicated to scholarly articles and research papers. She typed in keywords like vitamin D and immune function, vitamin D and inflammation, vitamin D and autoimmune disease, and vitamin D and mood regulation. The results were overwhelming. Thousands of studies, meta-analyses, and review articles flooded her screen. It was like opening Pandora's box, revealing a vast and complex world of scientific research that she had previously been completely unaware of. She spent hours poring over abstracts, skimming through introductions, and carefully examining the methodologies and conclusions of various studies. She quickly realized that the scientific landscape surrounding vitamin D was far from settled. There were conflicting findings, methodological limitations, and a general lack of consensus on optimal dosing and target blood levels. However, amidst the noise and confusion, certain patterns began to emerge. Numerous studies consistently linked higher vitamin D levels with a lower risk of various diseases and conditions. For example, she found several studies that showed a strong correlation between vitamin D deficiency and an increased susceptibility to respiratory infections, including influenza and pneumonia. Other studies suggested that adequate vitamin D levels could help to modulate the immune system, reducing the risk of autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis. She also discovered compelling evidence linking vitamin D deficiency to an increased risk of certain cancers, particularly colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. Perhaps most intriguing was the research on vitamin D and mood regulation. Several studies suggested that vitamin D played a crucial role in the synthesis and release of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are known to influence mood and behavior. This could explain why she had been experiencing anxiety and depression, despite having no other apparent risk factors. She also delved into the intricacies of vitamin D metabolism and its various forms. She learned that the standard blood test, which measures 25-hydroxy vitamin D, 25-OHD, only provides a snapshot of the vitamin's storage form in the blood. While this is a useful indicator of overall vitamin D status, it doesn't necessarily reflect the amount of active vitamin D, 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D, that is available to cells. The conversion of 25-OHD to 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D is tightly regulated by various factors, including parathyroid hormone, PTH calcium levels, and kidney function. This means that even if a person has adequate levels of 25-OHD in their blood, they may still be deficient in the active form of the vitamin at the cellular level. Furthermore, she discovered that the recommended daily doses of vitamin D, which are often based on preventing rickets in children, may be insufficient for optimizing overall health in adults. She found several prominent vitamin D researchers, such as Professor Bruce Hollis and Dr. Michael Holick, who had been advocating for higher doses of vitamin D for years. Based on their extensive research and clinical experience, these experts argued that the current guidelines were outdated and didn't take into account the broader systemic effects of vitamin D on immune function, inflammation, and chronic disease risk. They themselves were taking significantly higher doses of vitamin D, ranging from $5,000 to $10,000 IU daily, and reported no adverse effects. Eleanor also uncovered the limitations of many of the large-scale vitamin D trials that had reported no benefit. She realized that many of these studies were poorly designed, using insufficient doses of vitamin D, failing to stratify participants based on their baseline vitamin D levels, and excluding important confounders like age, race, and body weight. In other words, the studies weren't necessarily showing that vitamin D was ineffective. They were simply failing to adequately test its potential benefits. The more Eleanor researched, the more she realized the prevailing medical narrative surrounding vitamin D was incomplete, even misleading. She spent weeks immersed in the research, carefully weighing the evidence and consulting with other healthcare professionals. She spoke with a nutritionist who specialized in vitamin D deficiency and an integrative medicine physician who had extensive experience in using vitamin D to treat various health conditions. After months of diligent investigation, Eleanor felt confident that she had a solid understanding of vitamin D's role in her body and that she was ready to take action. She decided to develop a comprehensive plan that included increasing her vitamin D intake, optimizing her magnesium levels, getting regular sunlight exposure, and adopting a nutrient-rich diet. She knew that this was a significant step, and she wanted to do it safely and responsibly. Her first step was to increase her daily vitamin D intake. She started by taking $1,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily, which was the dose that her doctor had previously recommended. However, based on her research and consultations, she gradually increased her dose to $6,000 IU daily, under the guidance of her integrative endocrinologist. This was a significantly higher dose than what she had been taking before, but she felt confident that it was safe and appropriate for her given her baseline vitamin D level and her overall health status. She continued to monitor her vitamin D levels regularly through blood tests, ensuring that she stayed within the optimal range of 50 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. She also made sure to supplement with magnesium, a mineral that is essential for the activation of vitamin D in the body. Magnesium is involved in numerous enzymatic reactions that convert vitamin D into its active form 1,25-dihydroxy vitamin D. Without sufficient magnesium, the body may not be able to properly utilize vitamin D, even if blood levels are adequate. Eleanor took 400 milliliters of magnesium glycinate daily, which is a highly absorbable form of magnesium that is less likely to cause digestive upset. In addition to supplementation, Eleanor made a concerted effort to get more sunlight exposure. Sunlight is the primary source of vitamin D for most people, as it triggers the production of vitamin D in the skin. She aimed to spend at least 15 to 20 minutes in the sun each day, without sunscreen exposing as much of her skin as possible. She understood that this was not always feasible, especially during the winter months or on cloudy days. However, she made it a priority to get as much sun exposure as she could whenever possible. She moved her morning routine outside, taking her coffee on the porch and reading the newspaper in the garden. During the summer months, She would often take long walks in the park, soaking up the sun's rays. Finally, Eleanor made significant changes to her diet. She focused on eating nutrient-rich foods that are high in vitamin D, magnesium, and other essential nutrients. She incorporated more salmon, tuna, and other fatty fish into her diet, as these are excellent sources of vitamin D. She also ate plenty of leafy green vegetables, such as spinach, kale, and collard greens, which are rich in magnesium. She included eggs in her breakfast, opting for pasture-raised eggs, which are higher in vitamin D than conventionally raised eggs. She added avocados and olive oil to her salads and other dishes, as these are good sources of healthy fats that help to improve vitamin D absorption. She reduced her intake of processed foods, sugary drinks, and unhealthy fats, focusing instead on whole, unprocessed foods. She also incorporated daily light exercise into her routine. She started walking for 30 minutes each day, gradually increasing her pace and distance over time. She also began to do some light weightlifting exercises to help strengthen her muscles and bones. Exercise has been shown to improve vitamin D metabolism, boost immune function, and reduce inflammation. Eleanor found that exercise also helped to improve her mood and reduce her anxiety. 6 months later, Eleanor was a different person. The transformation was remarkable. Her sleep was deeper and more restorative. She woke up feeling refreshed and energized, ready to tackle the day ahead. Her joint pain had diminished significantly. She could now walk for miles without experiencing any discomfort. Her colds and seasonal flus had nearly vanished. She hadn't had a single cold in the past 6 months, which was a significant improvement from her previous track record. Her anxiety had faded, and her moods had stabilized. She felt more calm, relaxed, and optimistic than she had in years. At her follow-up appointment, her lab results confirmed what she already knew: her vitamin D levels had stabilized at 75 nanograms per milliliter, which was within the optimal range. Her inflammatory markers, such as C-reactive protein CRP, had dropped significantly. Her blood pressure had normalized, and even her cholesterol levels had slightly improved. Looking back, Eleanor smiled and said, "Sometimes we cannot afford to wait for medical guidelines to catch up. We must stay curious, trust evidence, listen to our bodies, and take responsibility for our health." Her journey was a testament to the power of knowledge, the importance of self-advocacy, and the incredible resilience of the human body. It was a reminder that even in our later years, we have the power to take control of our health and live a vibrant and fulfilling life. Vitamin D, she learned, is not just for bones. It is a hormone influencing over 2,000 genes. Standard blood tests measure storage, not cellular activity. Optimal dosing may vary. Work with knowledgeable healthcare providers. Much of modern research is still catching up to decades of emerging evidence. And most importantly, you have the power to take charge. The sooner, the better. Her life had transformed because she refused to accept the narrative that aging equaled decline. Instead, she embraced curiosity and the power of evidence, listening intently to her body's wisdom. Health 2660. Thanks you for listening. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, be kind to yourself.